Hi everyone and welcome. Thank you for joining us here today with myself and our lovely guest. So you're here with myself, Sonia Clark with Prosper with Sonia Clark. And joining us today is Tricia Parido. Welcome, Tricia.
Hello, Sonia. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's an absolute joy to have you here today and to share your information with our listeners. You have got a plethora of information. Seriously, listeners, we could go on and on and on. We've had a lovely discussion.
Not ramble.
Not ramble, it's education. We've had a lovely discussion just prior to us doing this recording here today, but also another time too. And it's lovely to connect with Tricia. So let me tell you a little bit about Tricia. And our topic that we'll be talking about today is the narrow perspective of addiction. But with welcoming Tricia, she's the founder and master coach at Turning Leaves, Recovery, Life and Wellness. She's also a writer, personal life coach, professional life interventionist, wife, mum and grandmother, and teaching clients to live free with the life they desire while teaching aspiring professional coaches as well as. So she loves to help and to educate as much as possible. And we've got lots of discussion and questions to ask her. So Tricia, do you want to tell the listeners a little bit about your story then?
Well, a little bit in the introduction there was, I'm a wife, I'm a mother to 5 amazing adult children, a grandmother to 4 little youngsters. And, I've had a really incredible life. In that really incredible life, there was, also a period that, was filled with a lot of struggles, battles, trauma, and so on and so forth, right? Like the story's really long, from assault, domestic violence, eating disorders, and addictions, to say the least, and on varying degrees and levels. And there came a time in my life where, and again, I always digress and try to keep the story, really contained, because being 50 and having, a 30-year span, like there a lot of things, a lot of life happened in there. But being a mom and being a wife and caring for the kids and facing things like childhood cancer, and bone marrow transplants and just the different things that, that we faced when they all left, like the empty nest was tough for me. And so, long story short, I ended up just in a place where it's like, I am super done being attached to different things. Like I felt like I no longer knew who I was outside of my role. And I was just constantly, seeking something, something to fill me, entertain me, soften the anxiety or this or that. Right. And so everything wasn't sure. There was definitely that, my attachment or my relationship with alcohol, it ebbed and flowed across a lot of years. And I'd venture to say from 12 to 43, and sometimes at higher degrees of severity, and sometimes at highly functioning degrees of severity. But it was just always there. It was a part of my life from adolescence until the day I was done. And so what really led me to being done, just to kind of wrap that all up, was I had struggled with anxiety post empty nest, and it also, well, actually no, the anxiety set in before the kids left. The anxiety set in after my hysterectomy, and I had a hysterectomy at 29. Anyway, so I had been taking anti-anxiety medications, which was prescribed to me, and of course I'm an adult, and I know you shouldn't mix that, but I still was a low-level daily drinker. And synergistically over time, the two didn't work out very well. And so if there's a lesson to anybody out there, if you're struggling with anxiety, let's get you to the right professional that can help you control that anxiety. If you're a drinker, don't mix the anxiety medications with the alcohol, because it's really not a safe strategy. Anyway, so it had taken me out. I had gotten to a place where physiologically I couldn't go without either anymore. I wasn't walking around like a sloppy drunk or, you know, anything like that. But I had physiological withdrawal every day. And so there was this, you know, replenishing, and it had escalated over a 5-year period. So I said, okay, I'm done. And so fast forward, here we are. You know, I went, I got myself stabilized, got everything all taken care of. And then I started studying because I had to know what happened to me. And so, you know, I learned all about the chemical addiction. And then I started getting really intrigued because then I started looking at the other aspects of my life, right? All of those things I was saying that I gravitated to and I was seeking as being that people-pleasing codependent, that, you know, if somebody needed help, I would drop anything and I would just go do it because, you know what, it gave me a sense of purpose and value. And I became addicted to being needed. And I became addicted to, you know, making things perfect. So my poor husband would go off on a business trip and he'd come back and like a whole room would be redecorated and he'd be like, what are you doing? And, you know, like, luckily I you know, kept the tags on things and could return it. But, you know, I had to, it was always something that I needed, whether it was shopping, whether it was, you know, alcohol, whether it was sugar, or, you know, food, or being of service, or doing. And, you know, of course I am still of service and I'm still always trying to help people find value in their life. But so, you know, I started studying that. And so I had, you know, studied and, you know, addiction treatment, addiction counseling, and I studied all the different levels. And then I started studying what we refer to as process and behavioral addictions, right? So, and I'm like, okay, started attaching it to those things that I was doing. And I'm like, those are all addictions too. And light bulbs are going off and they're going off and they're going off. And as I'm studying and I'm writing and I'm taking these evidence-based practices, and then I stumble on the coaching model, and I get really intrigued with that because it's super forward moving, and I'm applying all of this stuff to my life, right? And I'm doing one of my coin phrases, which is add, edit, delete, and you know, making it work inside my life so that I can be effective. Because, you know, once I was stabilized, the traditional forms weren't for me, you know, like AA or, you know, women's groups and stuff like that. It wasn't what I needed. Anyway, so here I am, and you know, through my whole educational journey and studies and research and all of that, I create Turning Leaves, and the core curriculum, or the core model, which is building milestones, which is also been, you know, trademarked, and so there's that. Did that answer your question? How did I get here? Who am I? What am I doing?
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. I'm thinking more questions as, oh my gosh, it's just so fascinating, really. And human behavior, you've got the whole psychology of things and addictions, and then you've got the physiological behaviors and addictions, and how it all intertwines really is really quite fascinating. And every single person is completely individual and different. And as you were talking, it was prompting me, or reminding me of conversations I've had even with my daughter. She has done quite a few years and she's got a BA in her psychology, but also has done some neuroscience research and those sorts of things. And the conversations that we have is really quite fascinating. And then I really didn't realize that a lot of these studies are also done more on males than females.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we look at trying to, oh gosh, you know, I think that a lot of us are educated to think that to find a solution, and a lot of the times there isn't really a solution. It's more about the next steps and what else. But then on the same token, well, hold on, we're just looking at half of the chemical makeup of the planet being males and not females. No wonder us females, we change so regularly in our different phases of our life, let alone monthly. But it's really quite fascinating. And then you've got the social sorts of aspects that are thrown in there as well. and how we have to evolve and change. So in our personal life and our professional life, and the different types of addictions that are out there, which you and I, we've had a little bit of a conversation about this, and there's a lot of business owners out there probably listening about that. And one of the addictions that resonates with them quite a lot is this younger generation with their click, 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 click with the phones.
Oh.
So we'll have to deep dive really into the topic, like I said, is the narrow perspective of addiction. So what does that mean? What are the narrow perspectives of addiction?
So, I mean, for me, the narrow perspectives is this. It's society as a whole. If you say, I'm an addict, where does the mind go? The mind goes to, and what is the picture that is painted in society? And of course, here in the States, it may be different, or a little bit different than it is in some other areas, because I know that there are some countries and some regions that are a little more open. But, anyway, you hear that word and you go directly to, even if you go to do a Google image search and you put in addiction, you see the down and out, totally depressed, tormented individual with, pills, needles, homeless, so on and so forth, right? So that narrow perspective is that, everything is horrible. And then you go, okay, recovery. You talk recovery to somebody. You say, we need recovery. We need treatment. There's a narrow perspective there also. That's automatically they need to go to treatment. They need to leave their life. They need to go stay someplace else for a minimum of 30 days. And anymore, that's about all you can get here in the States covered for is maybe 30 days if you're lucky, which is only stabilization. But anyway, that's a whole different topic. So we have this perspective of addiction and recovery is this need to go away and leave your life because you're not functioning in it, and everything is falling apart around you. The sky is falling, and within all reality, OCD, that person that has to have the clean countertops every day, is addicted. That's an addiction. It's a behavior. It's a process addiction that this has to be just so and we we get into those things. So that narrow perspective is that this is what it looks like. You have to assess and meet criteria, and then here's the treatment, outline, because each program is designed a little bit different, and everybody says, we're not cookie cutter, but the bottom line is evidence-based practices are evidence-based practices, whether you gravitate more to the mindfulness base or the social supports of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's all 100% abstinent based, and we just need to remove that substance, right? Or whatever it is. I mean, obviously, sex addiction and we have gaming addiction and things like that. But even when you talk about sex addiction, the visualization with that is, oh my God, like, oh, you're a sex addict, and so it's like, and like I've become attached to it, and so it just really lends itself to being super punitive, but it also doesn't afford for that broad perspective of that stay-at-home mom who's, the kids are no longer at home all day. They've gone off, they've started going to school, and, they're at varying different ages, and she's still a stay-at-home mom. And so during the day, she's cooking, cleaning, vacuuming, doing laundry, running errands, maybe doing the PTA thing, or, picking up and dropping off at, whatever football practice, yada, yada. But, it's very, very normal for them to go, what, it's the middle of the day, nobody's here, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to have a couple glasses of wine while I talk to my girlfriend on the phone. And that escalates from there, and it becomes habitual, as does the shopping, as does the, eating the sweets if they get upset in the car on the way home, right? Like, these brownies look so good, and and I have many clients, they call me from the curb, and they're like, hey, I'm feeling really guilty that the brownies didn't make it home. I was only going to have a couple on the way home and I ate them all, you know? And
that was normal.
real, right? And it's hard. I have,
Yes.
you know, there's people that I've worked with and directly, you know, in the practice, whether my client or one of the other coaches' clients is, you know, like, oh my God, I got into my husband's Oreos last night. And so I went to the store today and I bought another pack and I replenished the ones that I ate before he saw it. Oreos.
Yeah.
But it's still an addiction.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And they definitely don't need to leave their house and go stay someplace for 30 days because they're overeating the Oreos.
Yes. Yeah. I've heard people say that with those sorts of addictions, with, you know, it could be obsessive addictions over a particular thing, or it could be just the addiction over overeating. It's not like you can take food out of your life. It's not like you can completely take yourself away from things that are making that happen. And I suppose a lot of the various different things that you can be addicted to that way, that you can't always take it out of your life or remove it from your life. And I know I've known people with OCD and different types of OCD, and that can be very difficult to have in your life and for others to be around. And how do you deal with it? A lot of people don't realize. They go, oh yeah, OCD, or oh, I'm being OCD. It's a little bit like the depression. Oh, I'm depressed. Well, no, there's a difference between feeling depressed or being clinically diagnosed.
Just being in a depressive state.
Yeah, a depressive state, definitely, absolutely. And when people say, oh, just, you know, get over it, push through it, well, it's a whole lot more different than that, and it depends on what's triggering it. But say when you and I have had a previous conversation, one of my things is that workaholism, and it's a real thing, and people sometimes would laugh or go, oh, you know, yeah, and you work a lot. So no, it really is a thing. And what it is, it's not like you can take it away. And I do, and I've met a lot of people that are either generally that they tend to be their own business owners, but I've also met other people that are very similar workaholics, but that are managers. And how do you get them to still do the job that's necessary, or to have the business that's necessary and have the passion, but not to be the workaholic? How do you can't really pull them apart. And I've even taken myself to professionals and to deal with it. What are some processes that I can deal with this? And basically I was told, look, it's your value system and you've got to get your value systems in check. Okay, but that's still easier said than done.
I can say, you know, like, with respect to that it's not your value system. Your value system is a piece of your pie, right? It's a piece of your. Sorry if you can hear banging in the background.
She's having a bathroom done.
Yeah, but you know, they're just trying to get the subfloor back in. Anyway, you know, so you can have that value system, and that's just part of, right? And for some people that falls into your spirituality category, and some it falls into your life planning category, and it's up to you to determine where that falls. But that's just a piece of the pie. Right. So when we're really working on, and this is me with my client, you know, when we're working on our life balance, it's not home and work and health. It is 14 different categories, right? 8 primary with 6 sub categories. And we learn how to, bear with me, right? Because we learn how to actually cross associate. So some of this stuff that you're doing for work may be fulfilling some of your social pieces. It may be fulfilling some of your recreational needs, but you're just not classifying it as that. You're classifying it as work, and therefore everything feels work heavy and recreation light, or social light, or family light. And it's because we haven't written down what goes in each category. And we haven't said, you know, because for me, my work does fill me socially and recreationally and spiritually and in my life planning and, you know, all of these things, right? But I have to make sure that I know that, you know, when I'm creating, a lesson or creating an episode to go in my Strengthening Your Resilience, Life Unfolding, you know, when I'm doing that, it's work, but it's not work. For me, it's a passion. For me, it's a sharing, it's a helping and guiding. And so that goes into socialization because it's something I get to share and it's something I get to communicate with people about. And so it fills the different categories. So now we're able to say, you know what, everything doesn't, even though it might be work related, it doesn't all have to be weighted there. So that's one piece, right? When we start to kind of level things out and spread it out and cross associate, and right, we start to feel a whole lot more balance when we're looking at our intellectual health, our emotional health, our spiritual health, social health, right? All of these different things. Like we start to feel healthy in all the areas because now we're like, hey, wait a minute. This is work, but it's also this, this, and this.
Yes.
Right? And then we can be happy about it and we can be fulfilled about it and we can be super, I don't know, inspired by it. And then, you know, people start going, oh, you're doing something different. But, you know, also it's about putting yourself first. So sometimes we have to say, yes, but this piece of it is all for me, right? And this part is for other people. And I always, you know, say we have to make sure we look at what's on our plate. And as those new requests come in, because when we take on things that, because this is where we get in trouble, is we say, okay, I've sat down in the morning, I set my intention for the day, I chose my top 5 things, or 10 if you're me, right? And I've got those things, and then something else comes in. I always say, wow, I really want to, you know, I really would love to help you with that, or that sounds super amazing, like a lot of fun, or, you know, whatever the answer needs to be. When do you need an answer? Right? Because I need to slow my down, right? Like not that knee-jerk impulsive addict brain that says instant gratification, instant, oh yeah, sure, I can do everything because I'm a people pleaser, codependent, and yada yada. No, put it there, let me look at it, and I'll see, you know, if I can accommodate you, or, you know, whatever it is. And then you look and you say, well, am I willing to take one of my 10 things away? I'm pointing to my calendar. I don't know why you can't see it. But, you know, am I willing to take one of my 10 things away for this thing that this other person needs? You know, how does that serve me? Because I need to serve me first, them second, even though I love and care for them immensely. I don't even care if it's my husband or my kids, right? Or my grandkids. You know, sometimes I have to say, oh, grandma can't talk right now. Can I call you back in an hour? As much as it pains me when my 12-year-old grandson calls me to not be able to drop everything and just talk to him.
Yes.
Right? But what kind of an example am I leading by if I do that? So it goes even deeper and farther than that. Like, so we have to learn the art of pause. We have to learn how to become responsive instead of reactive. We have to know ourselves internally, what makes us tick, right? Where we might be compensating, like that overworking, over busyness, over booking, over scheduling, inability to say no, take on the world, whole scenario. Believe me, I'm that person 100%, but I'm very, you know, good. I got presented with a really great, amazing opportunity today. And as much as they made it really enticing for me to sign up today, I'm like, you know what? I have to follow my own disciplines. Like part of what gets me in trouble is those impulsive yeses. I have to take at least 24 hours. I have to sit with that and, you know, decide if now is the right time, is later the right time, is it not the right time at all, you know, those things. So we have to slow things down so that we can become responsive instead of reactive in our life. And stop trying to go from point A to point C without doing B through Y.
And we have to do it. Sometimes we say, why? I just want to get to Z. There's a lot of lessons and the reasons why in amongst it. It's really quite fascinating. And I'm thinking of all the various different types of people that I've met and the the different scenarios and the different sorts of reasons that have come up in time. And then there is the other side of it, as far as people with their businesses and knowing how to, one, I was going to say, well, really, what is that work-life balance? And especially depending on how they're categorizing, as you did say. And then there's the other side of when people really do have a type of addiction, and when they're saying no, when they really should be saying yes. So we might just get to that in a moment. Because I really did want to ask you, though, about what are those categories and subcategories, perhaps if you want to state them, because you've mentioned it and some of the listeners may not be thought, what is that?
I'm going to try not to miss one, because I don't know what it is, but it's never the same one, but I generally will end up with a mind block somewhere. So we have in our main pie, we have spiritual, we have health, we have work, we have social, we have development, we have recreation, family, and life planning.
Well done.
Okay. I got all of the main ones in the main piece of pie, right?
Yep.
And then the subcategories all fall under health, right? And those are ready? Emotional, intellectual. So these are all health: emotional health, intellectual health, spiritual health, social health, physical health. There we go. Let's see. Environment, right? So our environmental health, and when I'm talking environment, I'm not talking about how much you recycle. Yes. And you know, it's funny because in my assessment process that I do with my clients, which is that whole health survey at the very beginning, I actually did not create the survey myself. I took it from an evidence-based practice, with the exception of the environmental. You know why? Because it was focused on recycling, reusable products, et cetera, which are important, but that's just one piece of our environmental health. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Like, who are you surrounding yourself with?
Yes.
How does that feel? Like, people, places, things. So we have to bring those things into that. And so those are the 14 categories that we examine and we watch and we monitor and we shift and we change and we morph and et cetera throughout the whole process. So we start looking at that at the beginning, roughly about module 2. Because we got to, get some foundational work out, but then we really have to start building your pie.
Yes.
And so those are the 14 categories that we really dive in. We look at, we have you define them and place the value where the values need to be, and the morals where the morals need to be, and ethics, and all of those things, right? And we put them in there so it can be 100% authentic and genuine to the person, whoever that person is. I keep saying you, but whoever.
Yes, because we're all very different.
Frequently. I'm always reevaluating to make sure I don't get work heavy, and that I'm allowing things that might have my brand name on them to also be recreational, fun, developmental, whatever.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everyone lives life in a very different way and does their work and associates with others in different ways as well. So, and then there's the different types of environment as far as when it's being forced upon us, like COVID. And then there's the other sorts of, I get the whole environment thing. For example, I think really, I used to think that a lot of the times my husband really needed to be a part of that, and I didn't. He loves the country, doesn't like the city life and those sorts of things. But I also realized, actually, no, I really do. But it's how it goes about and how, so environment can be, I think a lot of people do realize on an unconscious level how they feel around that as to where they then choose to live and how they choose to be with their work environment. And I think that this COVID thing is certainly I keep saying it's a catalyst for a lot of things, a lot of different changes in the way that we deal with things. And it's going to it's been bringing that about in people, where people are starting to say, actually, I'm more productive from working from home, and I really enjoy working from home. And they didn't think that they could do the whole balance thing. It just means doing it in a different way. So really,
delete.
Exactly. And I also mentioned there the whole work-life balance. Could you give some people some tips perhaps then around work-life balance? Really, gosh, is there such a thing really for a lot of the business owners that are there, and how they could achieve it perhaps?
Well, sure, because it doesn't, just because we have this life balance wheel, right? It doesn't mean, and we maybe have to work, as business owners, I get it. My phone rings on the weekends. People are, struggling with addiction. They maybe are in a hard place, right? And yes, we want to be there for everybody. We want to be able to do as much as we can, but you know what? I have hours of operation for a reason, right? And so that 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Monday through Friday, and Sunday afternoons by appointment only. And I have to stick that. I will shoot somebody a text message, or if I hear like major trouble, I might pick it up and say, let's get you on my calendar first thing Monday morning. Like, I'm not diving into it with them, right? Because you have to, because otherwise you're not taking care of yourself, and you're not good for yourself, your whole life health, right? Like the whole health, then you're going to hit a ceiling, and it's never going to get smoother, and the perspectives are just always going to be the levels of stress, and the clear-mindedness and the focus. So we all need that regrouping. We all need to be connected to other things besides that. So I mean, that isn't even the whole thing. It's not about maintaining work hours, because some people, they don't need to maintain work hours because they're super disciplined at taking an hour lunch. Some people are really disciplined at taking those 2 10-minute breaks and going and doing something productive and proactive, like a lap around the parking lot, listening to a 10-minute rah-rah podcast, something that elevates their spirit and is feeding their soul and is touching their their development needs or whatever. But you have to systematically go, what is your daily routine? And how do we need to add, edit, delete, make modifications so that productive and proactively you can be living a fulfilling life on so many different levels, right? And so what we want to do is make little shifts, because it's not about changing who you are. You love what you do, whoever you are, whatever business you own, like you love your business. And if you don't, we need to talk about it, because let's back up and let's take a look at the why, and who do we need to hire, because I'm not even enjoying, my passion business, right? So we want to be able to say, what do I need to do to have all of this, and where, right? And so sometimes we need to just incorporate different things, pockets for breaks. And, I always try to start with that 2-hour time blocking system, where every 2 hours I check in with my core non-physical feeling. Right here, right now, in this moment, I feel. And if it's irritated, anxious, annoyed, bothered, frustrated, whatever, I need to sit with that. And I need to figure out a productive and proactive way to move through that uncomfortable so I can continue going forward. So all of the little shifts that we want to make are just little shifts. But what happens is then we get to make those changes and improvements lifelong, manageable, and maintainable. And that is the key. So we don't want to feel restricted. We don't want to feel punished. We don't want to feel selfish, and we don't want to feel guilty. And when we have any of those things, we need to figure out what the source of it is, and add, edit, delete, right? Make shifts. We're not changing who we are. We're just making adjustments so that it feels right. Because guess what? This is my life too. It can look, feel, and be however I want it to. If I'm not satisfied, it's up to me. So we don't grow when we, what's what I wanted to say? We don't grow when things are easy. We grow when we face challenge. So if it's easier to sit in your little hamster wheel of the, just work-life balance, it's just work and sleep, work and sleep, work and sleep, then okay. But if you're, if you're willing to take a challenge, and learn something new, which fulfills part of your life balance wheel, right? Because change is just learning something new. That's all it is. It's not scary. We're just going to learn something.
Yeah.
And anyway, I think I answered your question.
Yes. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm getting flashbacks of this situation or this conversation I've had with someone and all those sorts of things. So it's like, oh gosh, I wish I could reverse time and all of it and take this conversation to there. Oh, just fabulous. And it's so true. Different conversations that I was flashing back to there where people have been, oh, but this is me. I suppose I'm not the person, so therefore I've not understood it. I'm not the person who has realized, has attached my identity to certain things that go on all the time. This is me. Well, no, this is you. You have so much ability and possibility. Why don't you grow? You know, I'm a growth person. Why, you know, it's just adding an extra thing to help bring out your talent more. And I think that, you know, I know that we are biologically created to be able to deal with change because we are, and we've always been evolving and dealing with change. And I really do look at it that it's something that we've been conditioned to for certain reasons, and certainly the industrialization has contributed to that really quite significantly. And there's the controlling the masses for various different reasons and wealth and things like that. But I don't understand why people don't want to then to try and then to push through those boundaries, because what is your identity and what isn't? You could actually enjoy it and do it so much more. I get passionate about that.
There's this whole reason, right? And so there's a theory about it, and I didn't write the theory, but it's Julian Rotter's Locus of Control. So you'll hear these people and it's, you know, this is me, this is who I am, and I'm, you know, I'm happy being exactly how I am. It's that person when they do this, that, or the other thing, that, you know, it makes me angry, and then, you know what, I'm just going to go over here and drink or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
It's that external locus of control means what? It means that the completely happy, content, being exactly who I am person is giving away their power to that person on the freeway that cuts them off, to then be in a bad mood, take it all the way to the office, stand around the cooler, say, can't believe that this happened to me. And they're still talking about it at lunch. And then guess what? They still bring it home and they're talking about it there. And then they're pouring themselves the wine and they're ranting and they're picking up the phone. And right, all because of one person in the morning cut them off. External locus of control, give away my power instead of just going, wow, I hope that person makes it wherever they're going. Okay, they seem to be in a hurry.
Yeah.
Maybe their kid just got hit by a train and they're just trying to get to the emergency room. I want to send them all the best wishes. Right? Yes. Like it's a training, because we want to get our when somebody's tailgating me, and I grew up in Southern California, and if you know anything about those freeways, right? There's a lot of tailgating and a lot of road rage and a lot of, you know, obscenities and flippings of the birds. And and so I trained myself in this actual theory, the locus of control theory, on the freeways. Somebody was pulling up on the back end of me, you know, my instinct as a, you know, hothead by nature, right? German, Irish, Scottish, Sicilian, Taurus, born on the cusp of Gemini, riding on my tail.
Gosh, is that why we get along so well?
Right? My instinct is to tap the brake and say, you really want to be that close to my bumper? Let me show it to you, right? and so that was my go-to. Now I'm like, you move over, right? Now I feel people coming up on me and I'm like, wow, okay, I'm clearly not in anywhere near as that big of hurry as all the rest of these folks. Totally cool. I'm going to just stay over here in my chill mode. Let them all go by.
Yeah.
You know, it has zero to do with me. I don't know who they are. I don't know what their situation is. It's not any of my business, right? And if I try to attach some negative thing to it, like, oh, you're a jerk or whatever, you know, that's me saying that I know something about something I know nothing about.
Yes.
And why would I let myself be drugged into that vibration and somebody that passed me for 2 seconds, like,
Mm.
boom,
Mm.
gone. See ya.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
So it's a whole training process that we go through, because I work with people that are in their relationship. And it's, he made me feel this way, she made me feel that way. No, no, no. Nobody makes you anything. It's a choice. You're choosing to allow somebody's dissatisfaction with whatever to derail you and send you out to the liquor store to buy a 6-pack, order a pizza, and get a carton of cigarettes. I don't know. And believe me, I hear it all the time. Like, when I get frustrated, all I want to do is just and they'll do that too. They'll get the pizza, the cigarettes, and the alcohol, and then they engorge, and then they're all, sad the next day, right? Like, remorseful. And I'm like, well, what happened? And it's always something outside of themselves that they gave their power to.
That's right.
Instead of pausing, listening, using the power of inquiry to understand at a greater level, to approach things as a learner and not a judger, right? Mm-hmm. We have to reel that in, because we're all born in the external position. We're babies, right? Yep. We have to cry so that somebody feeds us. We have to cry so somebody changes us, right? So we're all born there. And as parents, it's our responsibility to take these children from this external position and bring them into the internal, which is, a whole different conversation about how children are being raised these days and why the entitlement is our own fault. And
absolutely,
I'm just saying, my kids learned how to do laundry at the age of 10.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yep.
Just saying. We had 5. There were 7 people living in the house. There are 7 days in a week. Here's your laundry day. Right?
Exactly. And you don't get paid for it. This is called life.
But I talk to other moms, and they're like, but I'm a stay-at-home mom, like, it's my job. And I'm like, it is not your job to wait on them hand and foot. It's your job to teach them how to grow up and be, functioning adults in society.
Yep, correct. I think we're very much on the same wavelength there. Absolutely.
People fall apart when their kids go off to college.
Yeah.
Yeah. You say bye. Because they had such great experiences and they enjoyed it. They were like, wow.
Yeah. Isn't it funny though? It is, sometimes it's a very cultural thing. So it can go back quite a long way. And yet on the same token, I often like to look reflectively through time and say, well, is this a now norm, or was it a past norm, or when did this come about? And is this something that needs to be, or is it a stepping stone, or what happened back in the really old, when I say good old days, I'm talking Egyptian time, I'm talking all the way back. Yeah. Does this serve us? And then as far as the whole, when the power is the giving away energy, to what avail? Sometimes when we put our different sorts of thoughts and processes and identities into things, is it really serving us at the moment? And coming back then into some of the things you were talking about, I was thinking about when we look at, say, and we're being conditioned quite a lot for what we see on TV, is that then another addiction that we're perhaps not recognizing, as far as how we're being reactive, because that sells TV programs and those sorts of things? Because I look back in, and this is only my way of looking at it, look back all the way through history of mankind. A lot of the things are not new. It's been there in the past. But working into the future, I'm into futurism because it's the next few minutes. We can't repeat the last few minutes. We live in this 1 minute, but the next few minutes we have to be ready for. And we have power over that. We have the ability to positively create our future. And I look at that's our responsibility, that we should be doing with everyone around us, our children and our colleagues and our clients. Sorry, I'm getting carried away. You wanted to say something there.
No, not at all. You're good.
So it's the whole addiction thing. To me, I see addiction, it's not the big, deep one perspective, as you say. I see it as lots of little perspectives. because with a lot of the way that we react, or the things we say, or the habitual thing, how far are we going with it? How far are we going with it to then become an excuse? When I said earlier, as far as saying no to something because we want to then go on and do the thing that is giving us that, what we think is a gratification, is that addiction, that chocolate, or that, no, I need to do work now because I don't want to do the exercise, or no, I don't want to do that job because I want to have that alcohol.
Yep.
And is that really helping us out for our very near future?
Nope. I'm like, nope, sure. Easy. No. Well, and so, I mean, think about that person that bites their nails, right?
Mm.
And so they're always embarrassed. They're always covering their hands and their nails. And it's funny that I bring that up because I always have nails on, and I had to take them off this week because they just got old. But the person that, and that's just one thing, right? That bites their nails. And so now they have this social anxiety because, their nails, but it's that habit. But then, to hit this from another perspective, if you go, how are we approaching life? And we're saying, okay, our relationship with food, because you're talking about over time, like historically, how does this happen? So if you look back historically, how was it? So when you were a kid, when you fell down, you scraped your knee, you got what? A popsicle to distract you while they were putting the hydrogen peroxide on, right? Something you got a good grade on a test, you got rewarded with something, usually ice cream or cake. I don't know, this is my house, right? This is me growing up. Like,
how did I miss out?
We got all of these oral rewards as far as, food. It's your birthday, you get cake and ice cream.
Yeah.
Right? You get to pick whatever meal you want. You get the cake and the ice cream and all of these things. And then, you go through a bad breakup, and what do you and your girlfriend do? You sit on the couch and you eat ice cream. And so, it's that instant gratification that we look for. And it's not always food. It's not always alcohol. It's text messages. Wow, why aren't you answering me immediately? Right? Yeah. And it's always that, everything. Our world is very instant, and it didn't used to be. Could you imagine our kids right now if they had to wait for the Pony Express to show up with the money so that they could buy what they wanted?
Yes.
Like, they would be mortified.
You can't stop in the car and go get the food around the corner. You'd have to order
or you know what? You've got your plastic in hand, you have no cash, and you just order your food and it shows up. Yeah. Pretty awesome, right? And so we're in this instant gratification. And so what is the addict? The addict is seeking instant gratification, instant relief, instant whatever from whatever that is that they choose.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what it is. It could be biting your nails to, doing heroin. It's whatever it is. They want instant gratification.
Yeah.
And so we have addictions is, yes, there's a lot of little narrow, if we want to look at them as subcategories, or we can just say we really need to broaden our perspective around what addiction is, right? How broad it is. Let's just call it super broad and destigmatize the word. Like, so if somebody says, you know what, I have an addiction, then our brains don't just go there, so that we can talk about life recovery. So, I noticed that my life interventionist was almost like when you were saying it, like, what is this?
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Interventionist, professional life interventionist. I like that. Tell us about it.
So when people call me for an intervention, I'm like, okay, let's talk about this, because yes, I'm a professional interventionist, but here's the deal. You go and you show up and you're sitting there indefinitely waiting for somebody to come in and not know what state they're going to be in. Nobody wants to be bum rushed to tell them they got to give up the thing that they think is their best friend right now.
Yes.
Nobody wants that. But also, in the same respect, you don't want to be bum rushed because you're a workaholic and have me come in and tell you got to stop. You don't want to be bum rushed and be told, you know what, we're taking the sugar enough is enough, you're killing yourself. And yeah,
Yeah.
some people's sugar addiction does get to that severity because, you know, we've got diabetes and we've got obesity and there's, you know, all kinds of health risks. But so what we want to do is the way I prefer to approach it is, hey, let's sit down and let me have a conversation with them all by themselves. If you can get them to be willing to talk to me, like that's going to be our best plan of attack, because I can say what's really going on, you know, and I can relate to them on some level, because there's not a whole lot of things that I haven't, you know, found issue with or need to grow and change, from the codependency, workaholic, alcoholic, you know, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Food addiction, eating disorders, all of the things. So, you know, at some level I can get on their level and say, okay, you don't have to necessarily, and sometimes we don't even have to give it up. Like, you don't have to give up work. You don't have to give up food. We want to set it up so that lifelong, manageable, maintainable, you're going to be living the healthiest lifestyle that you can without feeling punished or restricted. Right?
Yep.
And we're going to go on from there. And we're going to, you know, keep growing. And it's about it changing and a morphing. It's not punitive. It's not go.
Yeah.
Now, there are some, sure, that need that intervention that's going to show up at the door, throw the, you know, the 16-year-old over the shoulder and take them off to some place where they're not going to use for a month. That's fine. And I'll refer you all day long. I'll refer you to somebody that I know that'll get on an airplane or that will, you know, do that. For me, that's not, it's just not effective for me to bum rush and do that. So, yeah. You know, I'm more of a, you know, somebody calls me and, you know, my friend is super depressed and they're just sitting there in their house and they can't move and all they're doing is, you know, shoving their face full of whatever they can get their hands on, alcohol, pizza, you know, and they'll send me pictures and this is the table and this is what it looks like. And I'm like, okay, cool. Get me in the door and let me, you know, like start having some conversations, but, you know, make sure she knows before I arrive that you and I have talked and that I, you know, that I can relate and that I'm, you know, compassionate and I just want to help see how I can maybe get her to make one small step.
Yeah.
So life intervention instead of, you know, again, outside of the box, there's that narrow perspective of what an interventionist does. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think perhaps we've then answered some of the questions that I was going to ask you then about how you navigate these perspectives with your clients. Another question I was going to be asking you was with regard to social change, what do you want people to then know? So is there anything else that you wanted to add to my second question as far as navigating the perspectives with your clients?
So I think I would say probably the only two crucial things that we didn't hit on would be distress tolerance and emotion regulation, right? Because we've touched on the impulsivity, impulse control, locus of control, balance, and, you know, all of these things, right? It's a very in-depth system and process, but it works. We have to know that, you know what, without distress tolerance, without emotion regulation, without effective skill sets and tactics, nothing's going to change, right? So, you know, yeah, I think for the most part, if somebody needed some more specifics on, you know, how do I navigate through that with my clients, you know, it's very genuine, it's very organic. The system is the system, but teaching people how to do this very final thing, which is basically that bonus module or tip is, you know, the add, edit, delete, right? How to make it your own, how to build your own mastery once we uncover, you know, the areas for shifting and improvement and have you actually, you know, shining in the light that you want to see yourself in. So, you know, there's that. And I think I can probably leave that first question. The second question's a pretty simple one to answer, but whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Well, and so with regard to social change, what do you want people to know?
Well, I think the first thing I wanted people to know, we've covered, right? I think we've done an amazing job at illustrating the broad perspectives of what addiction is and what you know, recovery needs can be, that it's not just detoxification, stabilization, and and social supports, right? Like there's a whole menagerie, and I refer people all the time, like, oh, I know this person would be really good for you, because I'm not a good fit. Like, I don't speak everybody's language. Anyway, not to get sidetracked. Like, I think we've covered a whole lot of that as far as social change goes, and hopefully, we've opened some eyes. But if we really boil down to it, if we want for change to happen, social change to happen, it has to start at home. And I've written a lot about it, and I talk a lot about it. I've done a publication. I believe it was one of the Thrive Global articles that I've written, that social change has to start at home, right? So just like, racism and so on, if we start at home being open, honest, altruistic, genuine, and willing to own our whatever it is addiction out loud in front of our spouses, our kids, our parents, our in-laws, whatever. I'm not talking about screaming it to the world, but at least lead by good example for your kids. Like, hey, mom's really got a bad habit of biting her teeth or her fingernails, and you know what, and it makes me feel super embarrassed, and I'm gonna go get help, right? And do that, and then take them on in the process. Because here's what we don't teach in school. Sorry, school teachers or educational makers, right? The people that make the system. It's not a slam, because I think we do a really good job with what we can, but we do not teach children impulse control. We don't teach our kids distress tolerance, and we don't teach our children emotion regulation as a general rule, but in school, right? So that knee-jerk impulsivity, but we need to be affording them that ability to go through a breakup and be sad in junior high school, and not go straight to the first kid that says, oh, let's just go smoke a joint, or let's go have a beer, or whatever it is, let's go shopping, and those kinds of things. We've got to teach them to sit in and move through the uncomfortable and look at it. But before we can do that, we have to be willing to do it ourselves. So social change, with respect to, let's, and in one of my articles, and I won't go into it now, but I totally broke down the definition of addiction. And I also broke down the definition of recovery, because, some things that we recover from are like surgery. Like recovery isn't, but when you say addiction recovery, it's like this big thing. So, I think, the world really needs to just really be taking an honest look at our locus of control, and really taking a look at, what drives us, what motivates us, what we really want it to look and feel like, because we are all individual beings, and our life can look, feel, and be however we want. And if we're so uncomfortable with something that we're numbing it out with alcohol or marijuana or cigarettes or shopping or brownies or whatever else it is that we can hide in the back end of our closet. And I know there's people listening that do this. Whatever it is you're hiding in the back of the closet, get it out and show it to your family. And it might be, you went to Target and bought 10 tank tops in 10 different colors, and you really didn't need them. I don't know. But, we want to just be open about it. There's no shame. And then we need to figure out, how can I still shop? How can I still have brownies? How can I whatever and not feel punished or restricted?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm just looking, definitely. Social change. Yeah. It does. It sounds like you've almost stumped me. But I was just thinking, I think that a lot of the times that we think of social change as being a really big, ginormous thing. But yes, it does need to start at home or with the small inner circle and then go outward, because that in itself is still the social change. So it's, and I've said it in a different way as far as it's education. So through education, through talking about it, therefore we're educating ourselves, we can then continue to push through it. So, yeah, I think with anything really, it's about talking about all these various different topics that affect us both at a personal and a professional level, and continue to talk about it, continue to look at it, because it's what is really normal at the end of the day. Uh, we don't know really what's going to be happening in the very near future, so we need to be as empowered as possible, and to not give away our power, but to harness it, and to evolve, and to let that grow. So yes, you definitely did answer my question there, and I think that it's a really lovely thing that you do offer to help enable people really to talk and to look at it in a different perspective. So therefore, I would really encourage listeners to go to your website and to have a good look around, and to look for the various different articles and the various different things that you offer, so that they could really start to explore this a lot more, and to talk about it with others. And therefore, it is that social change, and to be empowering themselves ready for their future, for themselves, but for others, that they could come in and out of relationships with, and with clients even, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think, just to piggyback on, one little thing there is, that you said, when you were, based on me saying, it needs to start at home, it needs to start from inside, one person at a time, and go out. I think that's, there's a lot of different areas we can talk about social change needs in the world, where everything doesn't have to be this voluminous study, or this big giant plan, before it can make, we wait, we sit, and so, I mean, just take a look at whatever it is that you feel like needs changing, and say, what can I do to make an impact? Because if we all sit around and we sit and we wait for it to come from the top down, right? And countries are different, and states are different, and regions are different, and I get it. But, one of the things that's, that I just sit and I observe, and I try not to engage in, because it gets frustrating to me, is if, we want to sit and we want to, we want to protest, and that's great, right? But what more can you do, right? Like, change it inside your own home. If it doesn't matter if it's, racism, or your thoughts on addiction, or whatever. If there's anything that you're super passionate about, instead of, trying to be heard by up here, start at home. Yeah. Start walking the walk, talking the talk, and just be open, honest, genuine, authentic. Start talking with your kids, start talking with your grandkids. And you know what? Addiction isn't a moral failing, or, whatever it is, it's not a moral failing. It's a difference of opinion. It's a different viewpoint. It's a whatever. And let's start breeding acceptance. Yeah. Because we don't breed acceptance, we judge. We don't walk out into the world every day in the stance of a learner. We walk out there with the intention of judging the other person, how they're driving, how they're dressed, how they talk, how they walk, what they look like. I don't know, but, and that's what it is. And it starts when we're kids, because we start poking fun at people, and then we continue to do it as we grow older. And then it just becomes a conditioned way of being. And we need to realize that each one of us is living our own life, and we're free to think, feel, and be however we want. And we don't have to accept it or like it, but we cannot judge. We can be open and learn more about it. Doesn't mean we have to even change the way we think, or act or operate, but we can at least be willing to go, that's super interesting. Thank you for sharing, so that I have a deeper understanding. Can't say that I can get on board with that, but wow, thank you for enlightening me, because now I've just hit my development piece of pie for the day in my life balance, right? Because I was just open, walking around and having a conversation. Anyway, but everything starts at home. Everything starts at home. Yeah. Nothing's going to change from the top down. It's got to, right? Because we're raising the generations to change our world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if we want to act on it, we all need to step up and well, what are we doing about it? Yes, absolutely. It starts with self and starts at home. Absolutely beautiful. And I think you've really shared a lot we've covered a lot, and we've talked for a while. You've shared a lot of pearls of wisdom in there, and that I think that will really be able to help our listeners in the various different points in their life. So thank you very much for that. I would like to ask you then, what is on your horizon for the remainder of this 2020?
So right now I'm working on an article for Walden University. They're having a new publication coming out called Aspire. They've also invited me to do a talk, a presentation, webinar, whatever you want to refer to it as, in November. And I will be talking about this probably a little bit more on a scholarly level, if you will. But I haven't really decided yet, but that's in November. So I have those two things slotted, and then I'm hoping to start solidifying places to speak in some of the addiction symposiums and conferences. The conferences were canceled this year, so hopefully they'll be open next year. Usually they're right around March, April. So it's about time to start planning for some of those. But other than that, there are some changes happening at Turning Leaves. So if you jump on the site today, it may be different in 3 weeks. We're looking at some new launches, some different pricing structure, making things a whole lot more accessible. Instead of, just a continuous monthly membership, we're really going to separate that out so that somebody that, doesn't feel like they need that individual coaching time, or isn't, and just wants to do, the core work, they'll be able to just go in there, purchase the program, do the system, and have access to it. And anyway, so we're making some changes like that. We're adding some products that are useful, that are actually tangible, that are tools and tactics that you can actually implement without having to engage. So I'm just really trying to provide a lot of value. And so we're working on putting those in place and in motion. And other than that, just taking it as it comes, and when a good opportunity comes about, if it matches, if it's a good fit for me, I will never try to fit myself into a square peg, and try to meet what the organization needs. It has to be a good fit for what I have to offer and share that's within my value system, or at least provide the opportunity for that to grow.
Sounds lovely. Sounds very interesting, actually. And certainly to go and explore your website and the membership that you do offer. So speaking of that, is there an offer that you would like to provide listeners?
Absolutely, because I think now's a good time to take advantage of it, because within the next few weeks, it'll change and it'll shift. So what I want to offer is access to Strengthening Your Resilience Life Unfolding. And it's what it is well, it's not quite to 31 episodes yet, but it will be 31 episodes in its entirety. We're at about 21 right now of resiliency tactics and skill sets, right? But it's not actually a course, and it's, again, it's episodes, right? And it's just me talking and sharing and teaching and guiding and inspiring on a lot of different things. So we have the 7 C's of resilience that we talk about, and we talk about fear, and we talk about, all of the things. And I launched this at the beginning of COVID-19. And so it's just kind of been this ongoing passion project as life continues to unfold. So I'd like to offer people to feel free to jump in there and sign up. The first 5 are free, right? So for 3 people, I'm going to give it away as a free 100%. Right now it's $49 a month, and it's drip feeding. Eventually it's just going to be a flat cost for the whole thing. And the price point's going to be really low. It's going to be under $200, but so it'll be there. So that's all going through the changes. And so you'll be in the first round of it, because you'll be there before they're even all recorded and it's completely released. So it's called Strengthening Your Resilience, Life Unfolding. And it's one of my courses. It can be found on the website.
Oh, lovely.
And if not, just send me an email and say, hey, I heard you on Sonia's podcast. Hook me up and I'll hook you up. No worries.
Lovely, lovely. I'll also grab that URL and pop it on the website where the podcast will be too. Yeah. So people will be able to find it, which is really lovely. And resilience is such an important skill set, but also that it is a continuing thing. We need resilience for both work and personal life, professional life, and we just always need to continue to evolve with it. So that course or that episodes sounds
it's just episodes. It's just passion. And I urge people, if they say, oh, I've already done a resiliency or I'm in one, everybody's different, right? So grab onto as many different speakers, teachers, educators, coaches that you can and gain their perspective so that you have enough to add it, delete, and get what you need from it. Right?
Well, the sheer fact that you're offering so many different types of episodes on it, there's lots of different tactics and there's different tools, and because lots of different things happen to ourselves in life and work life, it doesn't necessarily mean resilience is just one way of one approach. So I think that it's fabulous that you do offer lots of episodes on it, and I think it's really awesome, and I certainly do encourage a lot of the listeners to go and check that out, as they can hear that you do offer some really great insight on it. So I'm sure they would learn a lot from you. So thank you very much.
Everything's not addiction related. Some things are just life related, and that's, because I think it's really important.
Yeah, lovely.
Things well-rounded and balanced.
We'll try. Like I said, work-life balance. So before we do a sign-off, is there any last-minute thing you might want to say?
No, you know what? I just value you. I value your time. I value the relationship that is budding between us, and I think it is amazing. And I don't think we have to be in the same continent or country, and I encourage people, cultivate relationships that fill you, that are reciprocal, that are genuine, because I'm telling you, man, if every time your phone goes off or the doorbell rings, it's somebody that needs something from you, you got to balance that out, or at least take control of it, because there's nothing more rewarding than having a relationship where you go, wow, I can receive from this person some great vibes, whether it's just love or whether it's respect or if it's information. There's nothing better than being able to receive the same that you feel you put into. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So just thank you.
Look, lovely. And look, thank you so much. It is wonderful to have, certainly to connect with you and have this relationship, and also to interview you and share your gifts and your pearls of wisdom with our listeners. So I thank you very much for your time, and we will sign off, but not say goodbye.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.